General. Love to have you again. There's more to come on O'Connor tonight. Joining us right now is Congressman Greg Steube. He's from the 17th District in Florida, and most importantly, he sits on that subcommittee, the special one, on the weaponization of the federal government because, well, Congressman Steube, now that we have this Durham report, we can see how the government was so easily weaponized by the Obama administration. I want to start there because Barack Obama's name seems to be lost in all of this mix, but he oversaw all of this, the beginning of Crossfire Hurricane.
Yeah, and this has been going on obviously for years. I mean, through the end of the Obama administration, through the Trump administration, and now you're seeing today what we all knew all along, that the Trump campaign didn't collude and conspire with Russia, but the mainstream media and the left and our intelligence communities weaponize the DOJ, the FBI, the FISA process, the intelligence community to create this narrative for political purposes. And at the highest levels of the DOJ and the FBI, you had individuals that were politicizing their work, and now you have proof in that from the Durham report. We're hoping to get him into the Weaponization Committee next week to answer some questions from members like myself.
It's more than just the fact that they created this narrative and they used the federal government or the Justice Department as a political weapon, sir. What we learned from Durham yesterday was the one fig leaf that James Comey and Andrew McCabe and everybody else in that cabal, the one fig leaf they had was, well, we had these credible charges and it had to be investigated. We would have been derelict if we didn't investigate. But Mr. Durham, he looked at it, he said, no, you never had any corroborated evidence to inspire this investigation. So I guess what most Americans are looking at here and asking is, how can there be no criminal charges? How can it be legal for the federal government law enforcement arm to do this?
Yeah, you just stole my very first question to Durham if he comes into the committee next week, is how can the highest levels of the FBI and the DOJ use a secret court through the FISA court, surveil on United States citizens for political purposes, and there not be any type of criminal activity that can be laid on these individuals so to prevent this from happening in the future? I mean, that's what I'm frustrated about. I know that constituents in my districts are frustrated about that. You had the DOJ, the FBI, Comey, Strzok, Page, all these individuals that were using their power and positions within the FBI and the DOJ to surveil on United States citizens for political purposes, and there's no charges that come from that. It's beyond the pale. It's amazing. It's frustrating that what they did could not possibly be a crime.
The FBI put out a statement yesterday after the report was announced. I'm sure that FBI Director Christopher Wray, if he didn't write it, he approved it certainly. They said that these were missteps that occurred. That's how they characterized it. And they said that they've already put corrective actions in place so that it won't happen again. Why isn't that good enough for you, Congressman?
Yeah, the FBI tells you, oh, we've put procedures in place to prevent this from happening. Yeah, just, what was that, a year ago, they're investigating school board parents at school board meetings as domestic terrorists. You have all these other issues that have been going on in the FBI. So obviously I don't take that seriously, that these procedural changes that they have made are going to change the culture that is at the highest levels of the FBI, that they're doing the bidding of politicization for this White House and for the Democrats. And there's nothing more clear than that now after the Durham report.
Let's get back to Barack Obama. We know now from the report, this was already reported, but it's been validated, that then CIA Director John Brennan, I think now he's a pundit on a cable news network, he briefed Barack Obama about the fact that Hillary Clinton's campaign came up with this Russian collusion narrative. They knew at the time that it wasn't true. He briefed the president on it, and within days, Joe Biden attended a briefing as well. He was vice president. He knew about all of this too. Is it fair to ask now that Joe Biden is president, what did he know, when did he know it? And as someone sworn to uphold the Constitution, which includes the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, what did he do to prevent this from happening, to call it out, to say, hold on, this is all a fraud. Why are you investigating the Trump campaign?
Yeah, that's a great point. You don't think about Biden being involved in that in these very early times as a vice president. And I agree with you. There's certainly some ability for us to bring him in and people around him in and ask those questions, or what his involvement was. Did you direct some of this information? Was it not just Obama, or was it you? We had John Brennan in last week for not a deposition, but a volunteer testimony, transcribed interview. And when we started asking questions about Crossfire Hurricane and some of these other things that we now know a little bit about, he said, oh, that's classified, I can't talk about that. So they're hiding behind classification as well to try to hide behind exactly what was going on. And my response to staff was, well, let's have a classified hearing then. Bring him in under a classified hearing. We can do that. Do a deposition, subpoena him. And a lot of this I don't believe is classified now with what we know now. And let him start asking some of these, or answering some of these questions that we have.
Well, and this is the root of it, because as you know, under Comey and then under Christopher Wray, we kept hearing that same thing. We can't see the FISA warrant, that's been classified. Of course, eventually when it was declassified, we not only saw the truth, that they were clearly hiding behind that classification, but we also saw that there was no reason why it had to be classified. So Congressman Stubbe, I mean, the real question here and the root of it all is, how do you fix the FBI? Because clearly there is something broken there. Clearly they can't correct it themselves. That doesn't hold any water. So is this a question of dismantling and rebuilding? Is it a question of rethinking the idea of having a federal law enforcement arm in DC versus back before there was an FBI, when there were investigators working for each individual U.S. attorney? Where are we going with this so that the American people can regain their trust in federal law enforcement?
Yeah, those are all great points, and I look forward to the Judiciary Committee, which I'm not on now, but on the Weaponization Committee as well, to looking at some of these issues. And you're right, we need some transparency into these processes. FISA comes up for reauthorization, I think it's this year or next year. That's going to be a bit of discussion. The previous Judiciary Committee, myself included, do not support reauthorizing FISA to allow some of these bad actors to get warrants to surveil on American citizens. So I think that will solve part of it. I had a bill last Congress that would require any sworn documents by the FBI to be sworn as an oath for them, and if they violated and swore an oath that the information was true to the best of their knowledge and information and belief, and they knew it was false, they could be charged with a crime. So there's small steps that we can take congressionally, not just with oversight, to change a lot of this. And I think, honestly, through the appropriations process, look, we have the House, but we don't have the Senate. So obviously Chuck Schumer is not going to be real keen on some of these bills, but we can use the appropriations process through the money that the FBI and the DOJ gets to accomplish some of these policy objectives through addendums to the policy process.
Sounds like you're flirting with the idea of defunding the FBI, or at least certain divisions of the FBI that maybe have gone out of control and gotten outside of their original scope.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of those is FISA. FISA has to be reauthorized by Congress, and they have to do that because it's the ability to surveil on American citizens. And if you defunded that, then obviously that would not be happening anymore. So those are the type of things that we can do through the appropriations process to have some real substantive change at the FBI and the DOJ, even though we don't have the White House right now.
If I could read back to you sort of the summation of Mr. Durham's report. It's a remarkable document. It really is. And it ends with this. The answer is not the creation of new rules, but a renewed fidelity to the old. The promulgation of additional rules and regulations to be learned in yet more training sessions would likely prove to be fruitless exercise if the FBI's guiding principles of fidelity, bravery, and integrity are not ingrained in the hearts and minds of those sworn to meet the FBI's mission. That's a strong statement. What he's saying is the problem is at the core of the FBI, at the heart of the FBI, in terms of the individuals that are there. They've lost sight of the mission.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can change that without changing the people that are there that have created all of this mess to begin with, and that culture at the highest levels that thinks it's okay to politicize and weaponize the DOJ and the FBI to surveil on American citizens for political purposes. Until you solve those issues and change the culture there at the FBI, I don't think you're going to solve these overall problems.
It's almost as if the American people don't want to stand by and watch people in law enforcement at the federal level behave as though they are above the law. Nobody should be above the law, but that's not how we see them behaving, sir.
Yep, I agree with you 100%, and hopefully there'll be some justice through this process now that we have the House, not just through oversight, but through the appropriations process to breathe some transparency into some of this and to change the culture over there.
And eventually a new head of the executive branch of government in the White House and a new attorney general. Congressman Stubbe, real fast, it's next week that you expect Mr. Durham to appear?
That's what we are asking for. He hasn't confirmed.
Great. I should hope he does. Thank you for joining us, Congressman Greg
Thank you.
Stubbe. There's more to come on O'Connor tonight. Keep it here. It's a busy night on the Salem News Channel.